Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new episode of our online TV interview series. We want to get an update from Chesapeake Gold, and we have the CEO here, Jean-Paul Tsotsos, who is with us. Hey, good morning to Canada. How are you?
Good morning. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, Jean-Paul. Long time, but no problem at all. Great to talk to you. I'm a shareholder of the company. I want to disclose that upfront, of course. You guys had very interesting news out, I must say. And this is something which is super important to a future production. You were talking about metallurgical results, I think is approximately 2 weeks ago. So can you give us a bit more background on that, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to update everybody on the latest set of metallurgical results. Obviously, this is something we've been waiting for almost a year. If you go back a year ago, we were talking about increasing the rate of oxidation and improving the levels of oxidation as much as we possibly can in the shortest time frame. And so last year we had told the market we had found one way which speeds up the oxidation rate 50% faster than our previous best result. Wow. And so those columns, we've actually set up a series of them. And over the last year, we've been running those columns, and the latest set of results is about those columns. And so I'll show. So this slide here is the one that was in our news release. And the most important thing here for you guys to look at is one, let's look at the far columns on the left-hand side. And you can see here that on 0 days of oxidation in an untreated, non-oxidized set of samples from Metates, if you put cyanide leach on it, all we could recover is about 33% of the gold and 35% of the silver, right? This is why it's considered refractory. So it's not amenable to heap leaching environment. What we have done is you see there that there's 4 other sets of data points at 126 days where we're able to increase the recoveries to 50% on the gold, 146 days to almost 60% recovery for the gold. And then we got to 204 days where we're hitting just 74% recovery for the gold, which is a significant achievement. So basically what we've shown is if the longer that we have the technology running on the rock, the higher recoveries we're able to achieve. And 74%, to put that in perspective for people in our audience here, general heap leach that's operating anywhere in the world, they're targeting between 70 and 80% recoveries. So we're right in the middle of that recovery curve. And so that's a significant achievement to have refractory material in a heap leach environment now actually recovering metals in the same level as a normal oxide deposit that recovers precious metals.
So that means, because you talk about refractionary ore, that means you do not need a roaster, which is hyper expensive, right?
Yeah. So this basically, the options that were available to people currently is a roaster or a POX autoclave, which was actually the POX autoclave was the route that we had gone down in the past with Metates before the purchase of the technology and the incorporation of that into Chesapeake. And the biggest challenges with those types of technology is, one, it's highly capital intensive, right? Our original PFS back in 2016 highlighted a $3.6 billion CapEx build. The PEA we put out in 2021, the CapEx with the technology brought it down to $360 million because everything's done in the heap leach environment. And why is that big difference? It's a couple of different factors. One, in a POX autoclave or a roaster environment, or if you're making some sort of concentrate that you ship somewhere else to smelt or refine, you need to first float the material. And when you float the material, you need water to do that process. So it's a lot more water intensive. So then in the case of our old development plan, we were using dewatering, a desalination plant near the ocean, and then bringing water in. So that's a big CapEx build there. Then you have all the flotation cells, again, another big CapEx expense. And then once you concentrate it, then the next step is you have to put it into those big, huge tanks, or in another case, you ship it off to the smelter or a roaster. And then you end up having to require a lot of energy that goes into the system. And at the end of it, those processes produce a lot of GHG emissions out the top, right? In order to actually process and get the gold. We actually have a slide in our presentation deck. These numbers are actually not our numbers. These are numbers from Barrick. But what it highlights is they have two operations. One is an autoclave, Pueblo Viejo in Dominican Republic, and the other is Veradero in Argentina. In Argentina, that operation is in a heap leach environment. And Pueblo Viejo is in the Ox autoclave. And you can see in the charts on the right that POX autoclaves require a lot more water to run. They require a lot more energy use, and then the GHG emissions at the end. And so our technology, we consider it to be green gold because we're basically extracting precious metals in a more environmentally friendly way than the alternatives that are out there.
Okay, so I mean, I fully understand that for Metates that you can take that, but is there also another large market? Because I saw on, I think it's page 8 in your presentation, there is the oxidative leach technology, which you could probably also replace some stuff, right? I mean, that's a huge market in the future because you have the patents, right?
Yeah. So the technology, and the slide looks like this that you're talking about. It is nature actually does this on its own over hundreds of millions of years. It changes sulfide deposits, refractory deposits, into oxide deposits with a natural chemistry. But nobody's going to wait 100 million years for that.
Not really.
So what we've been able to do is we've identified that chemistry, and now we are doing that in a heap leach environment, on an on-off pad, creating our own oxide deposits. And then once we create an oxide, we're placing that material in a heap leach. Then when we cyanide leach, now that it's an oxide deposit, we can recover the metals. And so that slide, the big thing that highlights here is there's a report by McKinsey & Company from March 2021 where they looked at the global amount of precious metals, specifically gold, and they estimate there's 2.6 billion ounces in reserves and resources globally. And of that, 25% of it is refractory.
Wow.
Right. So what does that mean? That means that about 580 million ounces in the refractory category, and you multiply that by last month's gold price of 2,500, and that's a $1.5 trillion market. So we have a technology that is targeting a big market share that's out there and a highly valuable market share. And we believe that our technology is the possible solution to that market. And so we've been super excited about this. We've been working on it at Chesapeake. But you'll remember a few months ago, we actually acquired the underlying license from Highcroft. So Highcroft is the original people that had all the licenses and they had patents and everything. So we actually acquired that license back. So now it's 100% owned by us. We also acquired their patent portfolio. And what we've done since then is we have put additional clauses into the patents that we received to further protect the technology. And we've actually filed a brand new patent just before Beaver Creek to fully cover all the innovative developments that we've had within Chesapeake. And so now it's fully protected with patents and patent applications so that we can actually now move the technology forward, not only for Metates, which is the reason why we started this whole process, but looking at those other opportunities that are out there globally.
Okay, super. But that raises the question, of course, are you now in the future more a technology company, or do you still want to build Metates?
Yeah, the way that we see it is the technology and Metates right now are linked, right? In order for us to move Metates forward, which is our flagship asset, we require the technology. And then by doing the work, we're actually increasing and de-risking the technology further. And so right now, the technology and Metates are linked together, but there's other opportunities. We're keeping our head up, looking around in the market. There's opportunities where other companies have mined oxide, had to mine some sulfide, put it on surface to get access to other oxide. And that might be an interesting opportunity where we could partner with one of those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And material's already been mined, it's at surface. We put it on an on-off pad. We sprinkle on our secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And then within 204 days, the material is then placed on a heap leach, and we can look at the recoveries.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're showing it commercially, that it can actually happen in a real live environment.
Mm-hmm. Super.
Now, the way we're moving it though right now is we will continue to advance it with Metates in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that means, in the press release we highlight, we're going to go to larger diameter columns. And then after that, the next step would be going to test heaps, pilot plant facility, a crib type structure. And that's the standard commercialization process, which we will continue on that pathway with Metates, but keeping our head up, looking at other opportunities, obviously.
Super. Okay. Before we talk about Metates also itself, one question, the question was also raised by a lot of our viewers. How do you see now after Mrs. Scheinbaum is elected? I think it's a huge advantage for Mexico itself, much better than the old president. But how do you see now the possibility to really still do in the future large open pit mines?
Yeah, so we're going to work with any government. We've seen, I think, 6 governments over Metates history, owned by Chesapeake, that is. And so we've worked with every government over those periods. The way we see it with Claudia is, she's a scientist. She's a smart individual. Scientists are usually pragmatic. They listen to reasoning. The one thing that we noticed is before she took office, that mining ban that was being put out there for open pits, the wording was already starting to change. She had a platform where she was talking about lithium and copper and how they want Mexico to be one of the largest lithium miners. Well, the lithium deposits in Mexico are low grade near surface, which the only viable way of actually mining that would be an open pit environment. So they added an additional clause in there that basically stated if it's strategic to Mexico, then there'll be an exception to this rule. And so the great thing about Metates is it's one of the largest endowments of gold and silver
in the world, I would say.
It's not a mediocre deposit. And so strategically, that is very important to the Mexican people. It's very important globally, right? And so I would expect that Metates would be available to one of these exceptions. And we're working with the local community, having their support. They've been very supportive of us over the whole time we've been operating there. And so we get local support, local government support, state support for the whole project. And that would lead to a very easy decision for the federal government. We know that the state government of Durango, they put together a list of 3 important projects for Durango, and Metates is on that list, which really highlights how important and strategic it is. And then the last comment here is when she did take office on the first day, she outlined her 100 pledges to the Mexican people, and the open pit mining ban had been removed from those 100 pledges what it was previously. And so we're, I would say we're considered strategic, but we're in a much better position than a lot of other people out there.
Of course, that helps a lot. That was a great answer. Thank you very much. Okay, let's talk about Metates because your PEA was from 2021. So what are next steps? What are you doing, let's say, on the way to, let's say, pre-feasibility, feasibility? How long would it still take that you bring this wonderful project into production by yourself or with a partner together?
Yeah, so the one outstanding thing on the technical side for the PFS was this metallurgical result, right? And so what this metallurgical result will do, because now we have that curve, we're able to do a trade-off study where we can look at the length of time, because that's a working capital question, how much working capital is required before we get our first bar of gold from the initial mining of the ground. And then the second question is the cost of the reagents, the chemistry, to get the recoveries. And so we'll do a trade-off where we'll basically determine where the most optimized point is. Maybe that's 72% gold recovery. Maybe that ends up being 74. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to come out, where the work is ongoing today. And that trade-off study then feeds into the PFS. So the main things that are going to change in the PFS, One, we put out a new resource last year in January, and that resource has not filled into the PEA. And if you remember and look back, there was a 17% increase in grade for gold. So that's a big
That
jump.
helps a lot. Plus the gold price went up massively.
Yeah, and then the gold price, we looked at $1,600 gold. Now we're at $2,600 gold. Right, so
2,700 even today.
yeah, so we're up $1,000. Silver, we were looking at $16 silver. Now we're above
32.
exactly. So I was like $22 silver. Now we're at 32. So $10 increase there. But we're going to look at long-term prices, so it's going to be a little bit lower than spot where we are today. But again, like big jumps in precious metal assumption prices. And then the last part is, we assume 70% gold recovery in the PEA. Obviously, that's going to change too. And so those will all feed in. And our expectation is we will be working towards putting out a PFS probably the second half of next year.
Okay, well,
and
that's
then
nice.
yeah, and then the next step would be that we move towards a feasibility probably a year after that, while at the same time working on permitting between the PFS and feasibility. And then at some point after that, there'll be a sanctioning decision, financing, and building.
Of course. So it could be like 2028, I would say, with construction, and then maybe 2029 you could start.
Yeah, probably in some ballpark that area.
Yeah, just roughly. Exactly. Super. One word maybe on the Lucy project, because you had a new gold discovery there, right?
Yeah. So Lucy, last time I talked to you, we were at the PDAC, and we were talking about how we were going to go back and do additional exploration. And so the big announcement there was we went back. We had a 500-meter corridor of mineralization so far. We have now extended that to 700 meters. And so drilling along the western side, we were able to extend the mineralization through drilling. And then along the corridor, we were able to infill where we knew where the resource was already. We had trenches at surface, but we were drilling under. And we have early indications of which way it's dipping underground, which was part of the reason why we were drilling across the corridor, and we're drilling holes to the north and to the south. And the interesting thing is we have only defined 700 meters of strike length so far and about 25 meters below surface. And so there's a lot more to go, right? Yeah. Now that we kind of have an idea that it might be dipping to the south, we can start building fence drilling in order to extend the mineralization at depth, which easily can double the deposit by adding another 25 meters of depth. And then we can continue to move that. So it's a very exciting point. We also showed in the press release that we put out that the soil geochemistry that we did on the eastern side actually highlights the mineralization continuing to the east. And where it dips under the limestone, you see poke outs as well. And we were getting grades, in some of the soil samples that we took, 2 grams to 3 grams, which is very exciting because my first job in the industry, I was doing soil geochem, and we were getting excited about 0.3 grams, right? So getting, orders of magnitude larger grades at surface kind of highlights the fact that it's a very robust system. Yeah. The geophysics we actually did over the property too during the program highlighted anomalies both on the mag and on the IP that are coincident, which suggests that could potentially be the heat and the source of fluids that went into the skarn system. And so the work that we're doing now is we have a structural geologist reviewing the structural elements of the property to get a better understanding of that connection and an understanding of the whole system. We're actually doing a bit more metallurgical work. As you remember, we actually did bottle roll tests, and we achieved up to 97% gold recovery on those cyanide bottle roll tests. So we know it's oxide, but we're going to continue to do metallurgical work to further de-risk that aspect of it. But we fully expect it to continue to be in the oxide, not requiring a technology. And then the last part of it is the soil geochemistry worked very well. So we'll do a much larger soil program. And with that would help to define further exploration and drilling. And so the next big step would be an update to tell the market where this round of exploration is going, plus highlight we'll move to 10,000 meters, maybe 20,000 meters of drilling, which would then be to build up a maiden resource on the deposit.
Super.
So on all sides, we continue to advance as much as we possibly can, and we're very excited with the performance we've had this year so far.
Definitely. Me too. And honestly, that's for sure. No, well done, I must say. And what I like actually is also the fact that you have the technology, you are controlling it, you are owning it, and you have the patents. I think that's super important. So maybe you can license it also in the future to get some revenue.
That's a possibility. And one of the things that is more clear now that we bought the technology is you look at our board, and we have Alan, obviously, who was CEO before, and he was managing the metallurgical work over the last 4 years. But prior to that, now we know, or it's more public, the fact that Highcroft was doing the work as well before. And on our board is Randy Buffington, and he was the original inventor on the first set of patents. And so he's been with us too. And so now you start to see what the real picture looks like here, that we have had the technology and the expertise for the past 10 years. And so 10 years of R&D work gives you an idea of where things are and how we're maturing the technology quite well.
Super.
The same technologist that was working for M3 back at Highcroft back in the day is actually our QP. So he's actually been on the technology for 10 years as well. And so this is a really good step forward for the company, because now we can actually start explaining to the market what the technology could bring on a value basis. And you're totally right. We could definitely look at the licensing opportunities for the technology, or the technology could be a competitive advantage where we can look at assets that would be considered, end of life. In some examples where the oxide's all mined away, there's the sulfide route there that the company cannot operate, and that's an interesting opportunity for us as well, because that's something that the sulfide's up there. They've already pre-stripped away all the oxide for us. Equipment and infrastructure is in place. And so these opportunities are very exciting to us as well.
Super. Oh, that sounds great. One last question I have. Are you financed? How much money is in the bank?
Yeah, so the last time we updated the market, we had 15 million in the bank. So we're still well financed. As you know, exploration in Mexico is quite efficient. The drilling at Lucy, we averaged about $150 US a meter.
Wow, that's cheap.
Which is very cheap. I remember I've done exploration in Nevada, and we're looking at $800 a meter. So just to put that into perspective, the work continues with the technology. Again, it's a really cheap expense on a monthly basis, around 100,000. And so we average between 6 and 8 million spend per year. So that gives you an idea of we got a bit more runway here.
Absolutely. Super. Great to hear that. Thank you very much, Jean-Paul. That was a fantastic update. And I would say you keep it going, and we talk then in the first quarter next year latest.
Okay, thank you so much.
Super, thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jean-Paul Tsotsos, the CEO of Chesapeake Gold, and you heard it. They own the patents, they have the technology, they are really on it, and fantastic results in the recovery, 74% for gold after 204 days. It's a fantastic technology. Almost 25% of all the gold you really can, get out again with that technology. And on the one hand, I see really a licensing. On the other hand, I see Metates to be built. Obviously, with Claudia Scheinbaum in the ruling, that also looks like that things are really working much, much smoother and better. And Lucy is a fantastic optionality. So really check out the company. I am in. You should be too. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.